In this video, I want to take you through the frugal habits that I've adopted that made frugal living so much easier for me. And keep in mind, this is coming from a former shopaholic who was obsessed with credit card debt. I thought a Carrie Bradshaw lifestyle was cute, and I've completely turned it around. And this is how I did it to make it a little bit more fun and sustainable. So coming in at number one is I really gamified grocery shopping. And that might sound a little bit weird, but basically, I just took the time to realize that not every meal at home has to be Instagram worthy. Like, I shop my pantry and I make meals based on what I have. And I know that might not sound like revolutionary, but for me, it was like realizing that I didn't have to go out and buy like garnishes or anything else to make meals look spectacular. And I kind of just like started eating for sustenance. It made it a lot easier to cut down on my grocery bill and actually eat healthier. Number two is that I swapped my shopping dopamine. So basically, that looks like not buying anything new and instead, like, we're all human. I get it. You get dopamine sometimes from like waiting for a delivery or like ordering something that's a little treat or whatever. But when I stopped doing that, I was able to save hundreds of dollars, and I swapped it out with things like getting a library card and going to the library. So I'm still able to read all of the books that I want, and I have to wait a little bit to get some of the books on my list. And I feel like waiting for the books to come in, I've talked about this before, but waiting for the books to come in and then finally going to the library and picking them up, it's like the same dopamine boost as like waiting for a package to be delivered and then finally receiving that package, but it's free. Kind of on a similar vein, I swapped shopping dopamine with actually decluttering, and I think this is a topic for another video, but for me, I found that decluttering my space gave me a similar dopamine rush. Like, I sold a lot of things on Poshmark and Marketplace, and every time somebody would come to pick something up that I no longer wanted or needed, even if I wasn't making like a ton of money on it, just having it out of my house gave me weirdly, a similar rush as shopping did. Number three is that I found free and low cost ways to build confidence and kind of foster a life outside of materialism. So I've talked about this before as well, but a couple of years ago when I started living frugally to pay off debt, I decided to learn to swim. And I found free swimming lessons at the community pool by my house. And going to the swimming lessons twice a week and really developing that skill, it served as a way to like feel good about myself and have something to look forward to while kind of like having a more budget lifestyle. And I've done that all throughout my 3 years of living frugally. So this year, now that I'm living in Montreal, I signed up for free French lessons from the Quebec government, and I got into that pretty quickly. So I've been doing French lessons for the past month, which is 4 days a week, and it's a big commitment, but it saves me a ton of money because I'm not doing higher cost socializing or activities. And it's also really boosting my confidence because I've wanted to learn French for like 15 years. I mean, I studied French in high school and I like can get by, but like this is really pushing me to actually practice. And it's also helping build community as well because it's the same students like day after day. We're all learning together. But I feel like seeking out low cost alternatives, specifically in like personal development or like hobbies that you've always wanted to pursue, it's definitely possible to do frugally, and it gives you something to look forward to kind of, for me, it's take my mind off the fact that I have to be super budget conscious to pay off debt. But I think that even when my debt is paid off, this is something that I will still continue to pursue just because it like feels really good to build skill and build community and not have to spend a ton of money doing it. The fourth thing that really changed my philosophy on frugal living is having a clear why. And I think you can have, like, most people who live frugally, I think they would say it's like to live within their means or to pay off debt or to save aggressively for retirement. But I think going one step further and like thinking about your true why underneath all of that really helps you stay motivated. So for me, my why at first was to get out of almost 6 figures of tax debt that I had racked up, and credit card debt too. But when I looked and like reflected a step further, I realized that my true why was to just feel free. So for me specifically, my situation is I'm a freelance writer, which is great. I love my job, but it felt like I had to put so much pressure on myself to make all of this money to keep up with my lifestyle, and I was still in debt. Like my finances were always out of control. And once I stopped, kind of because I had to, like the tax office was like, okay, you need to pay your taxes or we're going to start garnishing your wages. So that was like the true wake up call. But underneath that, I feel like my true why is just freedom, like being able to live below my means. And once I'm out of debt, like very, very below my means, I think it gives me the freedom to be able to take more chances and not have to worry as much about making a six-figure income as a freelancer, which is pretty much impossible at the moment with everything going on in the world. But I think just like having freedom as my why means that like one day I would be able to take lower paying jobs or I could take less work. And it just creates like a sense of peace when I think of when I'm able to get to that point. So, like, yes, my why currently is debt payoff and eventually investing, but it's also just like true freedom and true peace of mind, basically. So, the next thing that really changed things for me was making budgeting feel like a side quest or like gamifying budgeting. It used to feel restrictive until I kind of like repositioned it as problem solving. So I use the Every Dollar app by Dave Ramsey, which is fine for now, but I really do track like every single thing I spend. I always check all of my statements. Like it helps me to make sure I'm not forgetting about subscriptions or overpaying for anything. And I think that's really important too, because like before I was more frugal and aware of my finances, I would never check my credit card statement. And when I finally did go in and like reflect on the years that I had overspent, there were subscriptions and things coming out that I wasn't even aware of. And like even now, like for example, I moved into this apartment 4 months ago and I have been getting, so I moved across the country with U-Haul. I booked a U-Haul. They moved my stuff from one province to another. They dropped it off. It's supposed to be the end. But I've noticed, because I track my spending and my credit card statements, that U-Haul has been charging me every month for a storage locker, which I don't have and I've never had. So it's like $150 a month. And I feel like that's a big enough amount that you probably would notice it even if you weren't tracking every dollar. But it's like little things like that can appear on your credit card statement and you'd never notice. So yeah, I think just like gamifying budgeting and really tracking your spending, it doesn't just make it more fun and sustainable, but it also helps you avoid situations like that, which like would set you back financially for absolutely no reason. So the next thing that makes frugal living easier and more fun for me is being really intentional about where I live. So for me, that looked like downsizing into a 200 square foot apartment and just making my home a place that I want to be. I decluttered aggressively a couple of years ago when I went from having a home in the country and an apartment to just having one apartment on my own after a breakup. And I've really tried to continue decluttering and keeping my space super neat and intentional. Like I remember when I was basically a borderline hoarder, if I'm being honest. Like I just did everything in my life to excess spending and hoarding. And anyway, it's another video topic. But I remember going to my friends' houses that seemed just like more successful and put together than I did. And I never understood why their homes felt like that and mine didn't. And there was a time where I was like, yeah, just think of my friend's house. I used to dog sit for them when they would travel, and their house always felt so curated and nice. And I tried to emulate that in my own place, but I did it by just buying things. Like, I wanted my apartment to feel more like a hotel. So instead of like decluttering and cleaning and downsizing, like doing things that would make it feel more manageable and kind of like minimal, I would just buy things. Like I would buy little decor pieces that would feel like they were from a hotel, or like little pieces of furniture to make like little sitting areas in corners, like make more nooks around my house. And I feel like now I've realized that having a space that feels intentional and being really careful about the things that you buy and bring into your place, that's how you make it feel comfortable and curated. It's not by buying things to solve problems. It's by actually looking at the situation and kind of figuring it out. So that was very eye-opening for me. I feel like now my apartment, I wouldn't say it feels like a hotel, but it definitely feels more like a reflection of what I enjoy and like what brings me a feeling of calmness. And it makes me want to be in my space more. So I don't feel the need to go out to restaurants or bars to socialize. Like, I am super happy having friends come over into my apartment because it feels intentional and nice. Whereas before, I was kind of embarrassed of how my house felt. And at the time, I could never exactly put my finger on why it felt that way. But it was definitely from a place of overconsumption and lack of confidence, I would say. So, following up on that, now that my house is actually a place that I love to be, I spend a lot of time here, as I said, and that includes doing self care at home. So, I used to be somebody that would always go out and get spa treatments. I used to always have my nails done. I would get facials. Like, I really loved self care and spending money on self care, and I still do. But I feel like there's something equally nice about making time for self care at home. Like, you can almost make it into a little ritual in ways that you can't really at the spa or when you're paying for a service. So, something that I love to do that's a little bit cheesy, but if I'm having a bad day or I just feel like I need to give myself a little extra love, I will bring all of my skincare products out into my living room, set them up in front of my mirror, and do a really long, drawn out skincare routine. So I will use my gua sha and this little like massager I have and like really take my time doing my skincare. And it costs $0, but it feels really good and like intentional. I don't know, it like makes me feel more in tune with myself, which might sound a little cheesy, but I really enjoy it and I really recommend doing that. Like, you can pour yourself a glass of wine or make a tea and put on some relaxing music or a podcast or whatever. And it's like a completely free activity that really leaves you feeling more connected and calm after. Another habit I adopted when I started living frugally, actually, this was a more recent one that I found really helpful, is I deleted Instagram from my phone. So I still go on Instagram sometimes, but creating that kind of barrier to get onto it makes me scroll way less. And like, I don't have TikTok or anything like that. And I found it helpful in a variety of different ways. So for one, I'm not tempted to buy things that people are reviewing or talking about, or like the latest, I don't know, like aesthetic cup or whatever that people have on social media. It cuts down impulse purchases in that way. It also makes me compare my life less to other people. So when I see people doing something or traveling or eating at a restaurant, I don't feel like, oh, why are they doing that and I'm not? And then it also, and I think this has been the most impactful for me, it makes me stop and think of what I actually want out of my life and like what my priorities are instead of just what will look good on social media. So sometimes I think about like when I used to travel a lot for work, I would often upgrade to business class, and sometimes it was paid for, sometimes I paid for it myself. I kind of feel like obviously it's so comfortable to travel in business versus economy, but I think like if I didn't post this on social media, would I still be as eager to do it? And asking myself that, and then now also practicing it because I don't post on Instagram that often, it really made me more in tune with what my values are, and it helped me cut out unnecessary spending that I realized I might have been doing just because I had an audience of people watching my lifestyle. Along with that, I also think having a strong morning routine has really helped with my frugal living. I start the day really slow. I work from home and I'm freelance, so I'm lucky to be able to set my own schedule. But even for somebody that has a quicker morning, I think it's worth one, not grabbing for your phone first thing in the morning, and two, it sounds simple, but journaling in the morning, every morning, it can be such a game changer. even if I'm having a bad day or something bad is happening in my life that I want to just like scribble out into my journal, I always start the first few sentences with things that I'm grateful for, which I know sounds so cheesy, but I swear it helps my mood. It helps me to reframe situations into like just to have a more positive outlook. And that includes sometimes the struggle of having to live a strict frugal lifestyle. It just makes me feel more grateful for what I have, and it makes me feel like I'm lacking less in my life, if that makes sense. Highly, highly recommend a journaling practice. And it doesn't have to be fancy. You don't have to be like a great, brilliant writer. It doesn't have to take a lot of time. Like, my notebook is from the dollar store. I scribble my thoughts first thing in the morning. It takes like 10 minutes, maybe. But even if you did it for like 1 minute, just like a brain dump and like things that you're grateful for, things you're looking forward to, and maybe like, scribbling on something that's bothering you if you have to, it makes a huge difference. The next one that I think is really important kind of ties back into something that I touched on before, but it's really having goals outside of your financial goals. So no matter why you're living frugally, if it's debt payoff, if it's early retirement, if it, like whatever it is, having non-financial goals that you're excited about can really help kind of like take the pressure or the feeling of lack out of frugal living. So for me, at the same time as I started my frugal living journey, I also started a fitness journey. I ended up falling in love with fitness. I lost like 40 pounds, and now I do strength training and cardio. And I feel like having that in my life, it gives me like wins and dopamine in other areas. So even though I do focus a lot on my finances and, living a budget friendly lifestyle, and like I see my debt going down and it feels good, having things like fitness goals to achieve as well, it kind of like, it just makes your life feel more full, and it makes it so that you're not just focusing on this one thing of paying off debt or whatever it might be, whatever your reason is. Okay, this next one is inspired by my friend Tisha, who has always been so good at living on a budget. Even when we were in university, like she was always so responsible with her money. And something she always does, even more now that she has kids, but like she was always doing this even when we were students, she brings snacks with her wherever she goes. And she also always has a water bottle with her, which I think is like pretty normal nowadays. But having a snack, just like an easy snack or like something tasty that you enjoy, like for me, it's like Lara bars. I always have a Lara bar in my bag with me, and I always have water with me. And that allows you to kind of go out and about. And if you're hungry, you don't have to make like emergency snack stops. Like, I can't think of like the number of times that I've just gotten to hangry level in my previous life and then stopped into like a cafe and ended up spending like $15 just for like emergency snacks. So I think that's a really easy one that can make a big difference for your like day-to-day spending. The next one that has made a huge difference for me is consuming frugal living and budget-friendly content. So that's actually a big reason why I started my YouTube channel. It's because when I started my frugal living journey, I became obsessed with budget conscious YouTube creators. I binged them so hard, and it made me feel less alone. Like, it was something that I didn't really have a lot of in my day to day life. Like, not a lot of my friends, except for lovely Tisha, we're talking about living frugally or getting into and out of debt. And you know how they say that like you're the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with? Like, for me at the beginning of this journey, nobody was really talking about money. Like, for a lot of people in my life at that time, it was still taboo, or it was just like assumed that you were doing well financially, and or like that credit card debt wasn't a big deal or whatever. But I found that consuming these YouTube creators' content made me feel less alone. I learned a lot. And even now, like, I still consume that content very frequently because it just serves as kind of like a boost to keep you going, especially when you have like a set goal in mind. Like for me, it's getting out of debt. So keeping that momentum going by way of the content I consume, I think it's really like helps with motivation. It inspires you and it makes you feel like you're not alone in this journey. And the last one is, if frugal living feels hard, which for me in the beginning it definitely did, I think understanding why there's friction there will help you work through whatever it is that's going on and kind of like have a more sustainable frugal journey. So I think my friction really boiled down to self-confidence issues. I was overspending because I didn't have self-confidence to just stand on my own. Like I felt like I needed to have nice designer items or like be seen at nice restaurants to feel successful. And when I was able to break that down and kind of understand that what I needed to work on was self-confidence, it totally changed how I approached frugal living. And now I feel like, even though I sometimes do miss the days when I was just spending like I was a Carrie Bradshaw and like not caring about my debt, thinking debt was cute, whatever, I feel so much more confident now that I've been able to make this lifestyle shift and prove to myself that I can learn something that seemed really hard in the beginning. So I guess for me, it's like that self-confidence just came naturally as I continued on the journey. And I think you can say that about any lifestyle change. Like it's going to be hard in the beginning, but once you set and stick to the habits, it just becomes so much easier. Like it really snowballs. And then you get to the point where you can't imagine going back to the way things were. Like sometimes I think to myself, like I talk about this often on this channel, how much I love this like frozen no-name pizza that I get at the grocery store. I've made it into a ritual on Fridays. And sometimes I will have a thought like, oh, I've been living in Montreal now for 3 months and I haven't gone to a single sit down restaurant. I've gotten takeout like twice. Maybe I deserve to treat myself to a fancy meal out. But then I kind of just talk myself out of it. Like, I don't know. I feel like my goals now are more important than my short term kind of like whimsical wants. And I'm not saying that to live a frugal lifestyle, you can't ever go out and eat in a restaurant. Like, if that's important to you, then it's something you should work into your budget. And it used to be really important to me, but somewhere along the way, it just kind of stopped being important. Like, I feel just as happy having dinner at a friend's house or having a picnic in the park or just eating in my apartment. Like, I don't feel the need to go out and spend on a meal. And the same goes with like clothing. So it's kind of funny, like my frugal living and weight loss journey were at the same time. So before I lost weight, I was always buying clothes, like not expensive clothes, like stuff from Zara and stuff like that. And like I must have been bringing in like at least 2 to 5 new pieces every month. And now I literally never ever buy clothes. Like, I don't even really know what my sizes are because I never even go to try things on. And I think that also plays into the kind of confidence that I have cultivated on the fitness journey that I've been on. Like, I felt a little bit, I didn't feel as comfortable when I was not working out as I do now. And now I feel like I don't need new clothes as much as I used to feel good about myself because I do have this fitness routine that I follow, but it wasn't overnight. Like, I think my point is just that building habits, especially if they put you out of your comfort zone, and especially if there's something that you're not used to at all, it's something that feels totally foreign, it's going to take a while to cultivate that and feel fully comfortable and confident in it. So, if you're just starting out in your frugal living journey and you're looking for inspiration, like it is normal for it to feel difficult at first. It's normal for it to feel a bit uncomfortable or like you're lacking something. But the more that you do it and the more that you connect with your why and see the needle moving forward, the easier it gets. I think it's important not to forget to have fun and enjoy your life and really make your budget something that aligns with your values and not be afraid to change it as your values change. Like, it's not set in stone. We're only here once. Like, we should still have fun while working towards these goals. I just think there's a difference between giving into your every whim and having a more structured and responsible lifestyle, basically. that's my soapbox rant for today. If you made it this far into the video, thank you so much for watching. I hope you got something useful out of it. Don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.